Hi, friends. There's only one of us because Tank is in Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm basically talking to you guys. Oh, let's shut that up. That's not good. Basically, the way we're going to do this is I'm talking directly to you. I cannot hear anything. So if I'm too loud or too quiet or anything like that, you'll have to tell me in the chat because I can't hear anything. Because I left the box that allows me to do that in the studio, which is, I could have gone to get it, but I didn't want to. So we have our first super chat. I have no buttons or anything like that either, but Colin said, let's fucking go. Yes, I can say fucking because we're not on ESPN radio today. Great weekend of football, but we need to start asking questions about the Ravens and the Bengals. How in the world did they lose those games? That is a damn fine question and probably a good place to start. The AFC at this point might be the easiest thing to understand in the history of football. The Buffalo Bills are going to run away with their division. So are the Houston Texans. So are the Kansas City Chiefs. Somebody has to win the AFC North. I think it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh Steelers will get a wild card, and then two shitty teams are going to make the playoffs. I don't know if that will be maybe the Cincinnati Bengals. I would say most likely not. I would say the same thing about that green team from New Jersey that Curtis Davis pointed out is on conversation probation. So we're not going to talk about them because they suck and they're fucking irrelevant. There are not many good teams in the AFC. Every one of these teams outside of, really for me, Kansas City and Houston have a gigantic fatal flaw, and Houston may have one, which is they can't stay healthy. So, I mean, until somebody proves me wrong, I'm just going to assume the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the AFC, and it becomes a question of the better conference, which is the NFC. Which one are you going to send to try to dethrone them? And right now it's Detroit 1 and the Washington Commanders 2. Just, well, there we go. Oh, by the way, I did put Tank on the screen. I have to remember that it goes opposite in this studio as opposed to the mirrored one. And yet, before anybody asks, yes, I did go to an AI generator and ask it to generate me a picture of an overweight baby in a cowboy hat. That's how we got Tank on the screen today. So he's not going to, he won't be speaking much, but he will be here in spirit. They're doing really cool things. Tank's hosting I think it's a relief benefit with CBS. It's him and Mark Starling. They recorded the first part yesterday. They're recording another part today. Got to meet some really cool people, but we will talk about that in a little bit. I'm basically just going to go through the chat, and whatever you guys want to talk about, I'll give you my 3,000-foot view. I will go ahead and tell you, I did not watch the Jet game yesterday. I did go back and watch the tape. I watched a little bit of it. When Greg Zuerlein missed the field goal, I told Amy, I'll guarantee you I know how this game goes. And I was spot on accurate. So I didn't watch it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really care. I'll discuss it later on in this live stream. But Kelvin Joyner asked, whose baby is that? That's an AI baby. Anytime Tank's not here, I just go to an AI generator and try to find the most adorable little child I can create and put it in whatever scene he is actively in. So he's in Nashville, so we have an AI Tank. Red Sea wants to talk about the Cardinals. I don't blame you. I must admit, I'm not surprised that they beat Miami. I even said that when we were picking the games. I won't be shocked if Miami doesn't win this, or if Arizona doesn't win this game, because Tua Tagovailoa doesn't fix the problem to me. And the problem is exactly what you saw yesterday. Trey McBride ate their lunchbox. Marvin Harrison Jr. ate their lunchbox. And really, other than that, they didn't have to do anything. Jalen Ramsey has become the most overrated corner in the NFL, and it's happened, at least for me, slowly but surely over the course of 3 years, and now it's just bearing itself out. To me, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets are so irrelevant that they don't even need to be talked about. We will talk about them if you want to. Now I go into the side of this that's more interesting, which is the Arizona Cardinals. I will level and say I don't really think Arizona is a playoff team. However, I do have to mention the fact that their 4 losses are against 7 of the best teams in the NFL, 4 of the 7 best teams in the NFL. They've beaten 4 at least half-ass playoff competitive teams. They play a Bears team next week that I don't believe in, a Jets team that I don't believe in, a Seahawks team twice that I don't believe in, the Patriots, the Panthers, the Rams again. And other than that, you play the Vikings and the 49ers, who I don't really believe in. So to say it's untoward that the Cardinals could make the playoffs, I actually think they could. Gambit fan said the Cardinals are the best team in the NFC West. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that, not necessarily because I believe it, but I think it's pretty damn close. I don't think San Francisco's drastically better than them. They've already beaten them. I don't think Seattle's better than them, and the Rams are so killed that they're kind of hard to judge. So, I mean, it's a good win for Arizona. I was very happy for Red Sea. I did think about you when I saw that field goal go through. We got back from Charlotte about 3 o'clock, and I didn't. I'm. It's not that I'm struggling to care about football. We've done so many things that were bigger than football that I watched it. It was just kind of was what it was. I watched it. I diagnosed it the best I could. And now I'm here talking to y'all drinking a Monster. And I'll do this as long as y'all want to. I really have nothing else to do today. We went and saw Luke Combs. Had a grand old time. Drank a bunch of beers with the Silverados guys. Cried a lot. James Taylor made me cry in a way that most people have never cried on television, and I cried on television in front of like 2 million people. So, I'm going to hit Super Chats first, and then I'm going to go through the chat just like we normally would on a fantasy football Sunday. Soaring Eagle with a Super Chat, and we appreciate those greatly, by the way. We don't really get to cover this when we do the ESPN radio show because we try to keep them separate but equal. Those Super Chats have been, they've allowed us to do some really cool stuff. just kind of giving back here in Asheville. Tank and I are not necessarily two people that are going to be out, cutting down trees or anything like that, but we have been able to do some cool stuff with those, so we appreciate those greatly. He said the picture that he sent me on Twitter last night is exactly why San Francisco should be 3-5. Basically, the picture he sent me was 21 guys on a field way over here and CeeDee Lamb in the corner of the end zone all by his lonesome. San Francisco's not a very good team. I don't know why that's so surprising to people. You beat the Dallas Cowboys last night. They're not a very good team. If I were power ranking the NFC right now, the best team in the NFC is the Lions. The 2 is the Washington Commanders. I believe the 3 is Green Bay. Minnesota's the 4. Then we get into this nebulous Arizona, Philadelphia, Atlanta. I don't put San Francisco anywhere near that, and the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the conference. They're just bad. I mean, I get it. They have some players, but 1 to 22 of your starting lineup is bottom 10 in the NFL. So, to me, the Dallas Cowboys are completely irrelevant too. But San Francisco does get a win. It's not a very impressive win. 3-way tie at the top of the NFC West. And I'll be honest with you, the more I look at that, the more I do kind of agree. I think Arizona's the best team in that division, which feels weird to say, but it's true. Colin with another super chat. Okay, so the Lions are scary, but they can't get to the quarterback without Hutchinson, and that's going to be a problem in the playoffs. I agree with you. They do struggle to get after quarterbacks. I think they are going to add a player at some point between now and a week from tomorrow with the trade deadline. But then you have to look at the fact that they didn't even play well yesterday and beat an NFL team 52-14. Jared Goff had 85 yards passing, and you scored 52 points. That's an offense that's so damn good that it doesn't really matter. And you just took what Tennessee gave you, that a special teams touchdown. Detroit can beat you a lot of ways. And the fact that they don't necessarily have a great pass rusher it's scary, but it's not terrifying to me yet. All right, I'll go through the chat here. Anything you want to super chat, feel free. I will interrupt the stream for those. Gambit fan, fly Eagles fly on the road to victory. You did get a win. I don't know how impressive of a win it was, but you did get a win, and it did involve Jalen Hurts throwing to somebody other than A.J. Brown, which would be encouraging to me. I still just look at Philadelphia as you're a wild card team, because I do think Washington's better than them. You're a wild card team that's going to have to go into some of these places and beat teams that are better than you. And I don't feel great about them doing that. Look, the Saquon Barkley thing has worked out nicely. He has been absolutely dynamic. They play a Gnarls Barkley schedule. I mean, look, Philadelphia's going to win 11 or 12 games. It's the way it is. Outside of 2 with the Commanders, 1 with the Steelers, and 1 with the Ravens, I don't even see games on your schedule that you can lose. So you're going to be a pretty good team record-wise. I just don't really find you to be all that compelling. But I could be wrong. The NFC's so wide open that as long as you keep winning and you get to the dance, it's at least worth talking about. Curtis Davis, good thing the green team from Jersey's on conversation probation. Otherwise, we should have to have a serious conversation. There is no serious conversation. They blow dead bears, and now I hope they pick number 1 in the NFL draft, because Aaron Rodgers will go down as one of the greatest busts in the history of the NFL. The Jets gave up all that draft capital, and they are literally no better than they were with Zach Wilson. And I put that directly at the feet of Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Holt with a hail to that word I can't say. In the history of the NFL, a team that scores 20-plus points, gives up less than 250 yards of offense, and has no turnovers is 751. Yep. The Jets yesterday are that one. Yep. Just keep finding ways to break down barriers. Patrick Holt said he finished third in battle for the belt. I have not actually. I know who won. Eric Miller dominated us all, so good win for Eric Miller. And the second entry went to Jeffrey Meadows. The Meadows continue to just dominate that contest, and we will up with all of the winners. We're in terms of the business side of the show. I'm so far behind that it'll probably take me till the end of the year to catch up. So we're working on something that we hope to announce, if not this week, then next week. That is a pretty cool thing we're going to do with people here in Asheville. So hoping I'll be able to announce that at the end of this week, or at the very least sometime next week. Ches Johnson, Houston still just likes to play with their food too damn much. They do, and I don't know why. I watched more of, well, I shouldn't say watched. I listened to more of Texans Colts than I probably should have, and at no point did I think Houston was in danger of losing. I also could not figure out for the life of me how Indianapolis had scored 20 points. Your quarterback had 10 completions in an NFL game and was just sweepy and had to sit down at one point. And C.J. Stroud was not flawless, but pretty damn good. That didn't feel like a 3-point game. That's one of those reasons that I always say how much a team wins by is only relevant to people that bet. Because that wasn't a 3-point game. It goes down that way in the books, but it wasn't. Houston was really never in danger to me of losing. They went up, I think it was 17-10 at halftime, and I never feared that Indianapolis would outscore them by 8 points in the second half. But they do play with their food a lot, which seems to be really, really consistent with good teams. I don't know why that's happening so often. Okay, we have another super chat from Colin. So Jeremy, give me an opinion on the Bengals because Joe plays out of his mind. That defense is just bad and Joe can't overcome it, or is it something else? I'm going to be really honest about Cincinnati, and that's really all I know to do. Yesterday, you went into a game with no T. Higgins, so you had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and who was the third best player on that team? Okay, so we talk about how good the offense is and how dynamic it is. With no T. Higgins, you're talking about Mike Gesicki and Eric All and Chase Brown and Zach Moss and Andrea Iashivas, and it's not good enough. You can't be that bad defensively, have an elite quarterback, an elite receiver, and a bunch of dudes, because you're going to catch a team that is deep, that just plays with you. Saquon Barkley averaged 5 yards a carry. I combined Jalen Hurts and Jermaine Burton into one person. Jalen Hurts was practically flawless for what they asked him to do. And you just see the difference in the talent. Amon Report said Cincinnati should shop T. Higgins. I've been saying that for 2 weeks. He's not re-signing with you. You can't franchise him again, at least not responsibly from a monetary standpoint. You should go get something for him now. Because, look, this is not a playoff team. Even if you make the playoffs, you'll get the piss beat out of you in the first round. You kind of, and I don't think it's a full teardown to the studs, but you need some talent in that room. And I look at some of the guys they've drafted that have just been completely irrelevant to the cause. Chris Jenkins, I mean, he's a decent enough player. Miles Murphy, he's fine, but none of them are stars. I mean, you've put actual resources into building a defense, and your defense sucks. And when you play a good-ish team like Philadelphia, they just annihilate you. I mean, Cincinnati's a team that we need to be honest about, that right now you've beaten 3 of the 6 worst teams in the NFL, and that's all you've got. And other than that, you've been pretty well manhandled by everybody else. Scores might be close, but you didn't look like you belonged with the Kansas City Chiefs for the vast majority of that game. It was close late. You lost to the New England Patriots in week 1. The Commanders just outgunned you. The Ravens just outgunned you, and the Eagles embarrassed you last night. That's who you are. We're getting to that point where you are what your record says you are. They're a 3-5 football team that can beat up on bad teams that can't stop Joe Burrow. And that's about as honest as I can be about the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. Generation said at least the handsome is live today. Thank you for that. I did rock your Jordans around the greater Charlotte area. Had a couple comments on those actually. Of they didn't match the outfit at all because the colors green were different. But I had on the Craigtown Strong shirt, so I rocked the Jordans around Charlotte. Notorious B.I.G. Do your thing, Saints. Just keep losing. You're bad. The Saints are bad. That's a bad NFL football team. You're 2-6. I don't really care at this point if Derek Carr comes back. Nothing's going to change. You still have games with the Falcons, with the Los Angeles Rams, the Commanders, the Packers. I mean, you do the math. This is a team they're out of the playoff discussion. The frustration is obviously getting the better of them. You could see it with Nathan Shepard yesterday and the fight with Bradley Bozeman. It's a frustrated football team that's just not very good. And so now you start looking to the future and the draft because this is a good draft. And so picking in the top 10 is conducive for teams like the Jets and the Saints and the Bengals and a few of these other teams that basically just need a shot in the old ass. And I think all of those teams do. A lot of people commenting on the look for Tank. He is looking a little more svelte today than usual. He's in Nashville for those of you that missed the start of the stream. So we will not be on ESPN airwaves today and tomorrow. I will be putting out a mock draft tomorrow that I'm recording later on today. I have a couple meetings tomorrow, so I can't do it live. But I'll put it out at 12 in the same slot, and it will be this same frame, only instead of Fat Baby Tank, we will have the draft board right there. Let's see. Gambit asks, should I drink the Eagles Kool-Aid or should I the smashing of the Bengals and Sirianni's off the hot seat? Yeah. I don't think you should put much into smashing Cincinnati. The thing you should look at with Philadelphia is you have done a good job of beating teams that you are way better than. You beat the Packers in week 1. I don't think you're better than them. That was in Brazil. I've always considered that to kind of be a one-off game. Other than that, you've beaten the Saints, Browns, Giants, and Bengals. It's 4 of the 10 worst teams in the NFL. You beat the hell out of 2 of them. But when you really get into the playoffs, I don't know that you're going to be able to beat any of those teams that are in your weight class. I just haven't seen you do it. I'm not telling you can't. I don't know because I haven't seen it. Ramonzo Berry said at least the baby probably doesn't sheet his pants at the airport. That's probably true. Although this cute little fella probably would shit his pants at all instances. Patrick Holt said that's Jeremy's alcohol food baby. I have absolutely no idea what that means. I did drink a bajillion beers in Charlotte though. And I think now is probably a good time just since you gave me the segue there, to say a tremendous shout out to the Tepper family, Luke Combs, Eric Church, James Taylor, Billy Strings, who I didn't even know who he was, Keith Urban, his wife Nicole Kidman, I mean, good God, Bailey Zimmerman, Sheryl Crow, all of the people that put on that production in Charlotte. And I don't feel like they did a good enough job of explaining outside of the stadium that the Teppers gave every single cent that was made in that stadium. All the beer sales, all the food sales, all the parking sales. The Teppers picked up the tab for paying everybody that worked it and all of the logistics, and they just gave all the money right back up that damn mountain, as Luke Combs said. It is almost $25 million. It will end up being close to $30 million by the time it's all said and done. I know a lot of people don't like the Teppers. I've never seen anybody do that. Even in charity concerts, usually they take the bar. And they didn't hear, and it was a sight to behold. And if you watch the live stream, yes, that was me crying on camera, not another one of my doppelgangers. I just right before I started this stream found out what part of me they put on camera, and that was a super emotional moment. That yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. Kelvin Joyner said Tua looked good. Tua looked fine. The defense sucks. That's another team like I'm talking about with Miami or with Cincinnati and the Jets and Cincinnati. You're just not good enough. Like you're not good enough to go beat a Houston or a Kansas City. So what the hell's the point? And losing that game was borderline inexcusable, and it didn't surprise me in the least. Pennywise, Commanders are going to go to the playoffs. We're going to hurt someone's feelings when we get there. We will talk about the Fail Mary for Chicago here in just a little bit. And Patrick Holt said, I would not want to be that Bears corner today at practice. That was taunting before the play. I don't disagree with you. That feller probably wound up with a duty in his locker, because that was embarrassing. Matthew Hoffman said at least Hank can do his one job today. Yeah, his job's to be cute. Just be a cute little feller in a cowboy hat over there. That's your only job. Colin, let's go on a deep dive. What quarterback is going to get that break the bank contract? I don't really know that there's going to be one of those coming up. I think all the guys that are going to break the bank have already done it. I don't see one coming because if you look at the history of drafted quarterbacks, I mean, the answer is probably Jaden Daniels. That's so damn far away that it's hard for that to be my answer. But if you look at the history of drafted quarterbacks, we just went through the Trevor Lawrence extension. Since then, you're talking about Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Sam Howell, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and then the rookies here. C.J. Stroud's going to make an unbelievable amount of money. Other than that, I don't really see one that's going to, quote, break the bank. Now, then you get into the quarterbacks in this upcoming class, which is a whole nother ball of wax. Red Sea with a super chat that said Tyreek Stevenson was the one to tip the pass, too. He was, and he was doing a little dance of, hey, we beat you, Washington. No, the fuck you didn't, because you stopped paying attention, you dumb shit. I actually went back when I found out who that was, and I thought this was the case, but I just wanted to be sure. I went back to my notes from when Tyreek Stevenson was drafted, and I said, in his draft report, I said it would be great if he wasn't so damn stupid. But I always love when those things bear themselves out in the NFL. Tyreek Stevenson's super talented. The problem is that he's not a very smart guy, and that's problematic. Okay. Chiefs Nation UK said, I know y'all want every Chiefs fan to go to hell. There were some very questionable calls in that game yesterday, just saying. You're not wrong. And look, we don't want every Chiefs fan to go to hell. We want to be happy. This is just like New England all over again. We want to be happy for the ones that you wrote in as Chiefs fans, and you will write out Chiefs fans, and the ones that are going to be fans of the Houston Texans when this, or whoever is the next great team. Those are the ones that we want to shut the fuck up. You don't seem to be one of those. I don't really know you well enough to know that, but I think you've been a Chiefs fan before Pat Mahomes, just with some of the things you've said over time. So it's not really you that we want to go to hell. It's that Pat Mahomes jock sniffer that was wearing Tom Brady jerseys like 8 years ago. Divine Comedy, Jeremy, we had words last week, but we don't need to fight because we both root for two of the most embarrassing teams in the league. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The difference between my team and your team is that you're at least losing to good teams. My team keeps losing to the dregs of the NFL, and at some point, you are what your record says you are. And those are two mediocre to bad teams that have done very little with a good amount. Pissed the hell off Browns fan, Jameis Winston for MVP. I I have to. If I had a bell, I'd give myself a little ding because told you. I did not think they would beat Baltimore. I thought that line was so unbelievably stupid. If you took all of the money I bet on the NFL yesterday and made it into a pie, over half of that pie was the Cleveland Browns against that number. And that went just fine. Red Sea, Chad Ryland with 3 game-winning kicks this year, which is it is impressive considering how bad he was before he got to Arizona. Eric Miller asked, does the OC in Seattle system work in the NFL? He's talking about Ryan Grubb. Because I'm worried it's too much throwing. All right. Seattle is one of those teams to me that's just not, they're not overly hard to figure out. Because if you watch them, it is abundantly obvious what is wrong with this team. And I will use Buffalo yesterday as an example. Over the course of an entire NFL game, you ran 17 times for 32 yards. That's in a game that it was at least in doubt until halftime. The Buffalo Bills, who have been one of the most bled teams in the NFL against the run, basically said, we're going to put this on Geno Smith to beat us because we don't think he can. Ryan Grubb does not seem to agree with that. You're the number 1 passing team in the NFL. You're 4th from last, I think, in rushing. And that's almost hard to comprehend when you have Kenny Walker. I feel the same way about the Jets. When you look at the bottom 5 teams in the NFL, bottom 6 teams, as a matter of fact, in rushing in the NFL, you see a lot of Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Zamir White, Alexander Madison, Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, and then you have Kenny Walker and Breece Hall right in the middle. And those are 2 horribly underachieving teams, and that is one of the reasons as to why. Now, as for do I think Ryan Grubb can catch his back up? There it is. And we're back. Apologies in the home studio today. That's going to happen a time or two. I'm running a new network card that is not configured, so I'm kind of doing those things as we're going through this. It's just hard when you're only talking to yourself. So, I believe we're back. If somebody in the chat will just confirm that for me. I can see all the levels, but it's still spinning. Once somebody confirms that we're back, I'll keep answering questions. Okay, we're back. All right, so the answer to your question, Eric Miller, was I do believe that Ryan Grubb can work in the NFL. It's just growing pains. Right now, he has a very collegiate mindset, and that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard in the NFC to overcome when you have Geno Smith as your quarterback. My issue with him was never that he couldn't do things statistically. The problem is that he doesn't really commit to winning football. There are good NFL quarterbacks that are not what I would quantify as winners. I look at Geno Smith in that. I look at Baker Mayfield in that. I look at Tua Tagovailoa in that. Basically, all of the guys when we power ranked quarterbacks that I had from about 16 to 22. It's not that you're not a good quarterback that can put up stats. I don't think you can win. We've been talking about the Tyreek Stevenson thing, but something else happened. Shane Waldron ran a fullback draw on the goal line with the backup center. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, when those work, you look like a genius, and when they don't work, you look like a dumbass. And that's one of those times that you look like a dumbass. It's kind of like the Raiders. The Raiders had, and I can't remember who the lineman was now. I think it was Thayer Munford that they had out playing the Z receiver spot. And it looks really stupid when it doesn't work. When it does work, you have a sixth offensive lineman that's setting the edge. So it's funny how razor thin the difference is between genius and dumb shit. Oh, Gambit fan, 49ers. The 49ers love letting teams back into games almost as much as the blue team on conversation probation loves making blowouts look closer than they are. Oh, you're talking about the Cowboys. Yes, they do love to come back late. The 49ers we talked about earlier, I don't think they're great. I don't think Brock Purdy's great. I think he's getting unveiled. And it's happening week by week. Notorious B.I.G. Colin, they're still talking about the Lions, still beating the shit out of teams without Hutch. But I see your argument. And that's pretty much where I'm at as well. Jonathan Welch answering Eric Miller's question. It has to. Seahawks don't have an elite defense anymore. They can't stop a nosebleed. So the Ryan Grubb high pass offense is the only way they can stay competitive. I don't really agree with that. I see what you're saying, but for me, that's a larger point, and it's a thing that NFL teams do. Of you do the only thing that you know how to do. The only problem is that leads to you going 7-10, because you're not good enough at that to be high level competitive. So my question would be, why do you want to stay on the treadmill, on the hamster wheel, just doing the same thing that you've been doing over and over and over again, as opposed to learn the offense, know that this year is not a Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl year. I don't think that's spicy to anybody. What we've got to do is get the offense right, figure out who we have moving forward, and that is the reason that I have said that I would be considering Sam Howell at this point, just to see if that's the long-term solution. I don't know that it is. It may not be, but I won't know until I see it. Chio said, Dak's not a playoff quarterback, same level as Purdy, except Dak is being overpaid for those stats. Exactly. That's always been my problem with overpaying the 8 to 15 quarterback. I will pay elite money to elite quarterbacks. Other than that, I will let somebody else do it. Because the difference between what you're getting out of Dak Prescott and what you're getting out of Daniel Jones is significant stat-wise. It's not significant in terms of competitive for Super Bowls, because neither one of them are. Austin Groves asked, did the Bears loss yesterday already put them out of the playoffs? It didn't put them out of the playoffs, but it's not going to help. Look, right now, the 7 playoff teams, and I'll have to pull up the playoff side of this. The 7 playoff teams in the NFC, the Lions would be the 1 seed, Washington would be the 2, Atlanta would be the 3, Arizona would be the 4 because they have tiebreak over San Francisco and Seattle, Green Bay's the 5, Minnesota's the 6, Philadelphia's the 7, and then Chicago, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Seattle are all tied in the win column for 8 through 11. I would say you can put the bottom 5 teams down there almost out. The only one that's even debatable to me is the Rams. I will tell you right now, the Cowboys, Giants, Saints, and Panthers are not making the playoffs. I don't think the Rams and Seahawks are. I don't think the Buccaneers are. So really, that just leaves you with the 49ers and Bears as teams that are out of the playoffs that could still make it in my opinion. Oh, let's see. Red Sea said Arizona kept Detroit to 20, and then they've rattled off 40-plus every game since. That offense is interesting. That offense is interesting for sure. Red Sea with a super chat of John Urschel a few years back for Baltimore. You're kind of agreeing with the point that I was making. It's shocking how you can be. There's visionary and there's stupid. And the difference between the two is not the play, it's the success of the play. Let's see. And you feel free to keep throwing those super chats in. I will, those jump to the top of the line. Other than that, I'll just keep reading through the chat. Pissed the hell off Browns fan said, I think it's the Lions, Vikings, Packers, and unfortunately the Eagles. The rest of them are just playing catch-up ball. I can't disagree with you. The NFC North is getting 3 playoff teams. I feel very sure of it. And Vincent Collier said, go Lions. You should be very happy right now. I think you pull for the second best team in the NFL. Divine Comedy, he warned people about Waldron all offseason. He did. He said that a lot. I actually heard that from a couple people. He was one of the most vocal. Eamon Report, Matt Eberflus is not a good head coach. He is not. And his hair seems to change color every single week, which is weird to me. And Cincinnati should shop T. Higgins. I agree with you, for sure. Colin said Trey Hendrickson's the third best player on that Bengals team. I was talking about with the offense. I know I didn't say that word, but you're right. He is the third best player on that team. And a player that I would be considering shopping if I was Cincinnati. Colin with an empty super chat. So whatever the next thing you say will be what we use as said super chat. I will come back to that one in a second. That is really easy to do. So, Gambit, Bengals made the Eagles look like the greatest show on turf. I did. Pennywise said, fire Zach Taylor. Don't worry, they will. It's coming. Chris Oder told me yesterday that Zach Taylor's like bulletproof because he's the first guy to take them to a Super Bowl. Winning the playoffs, let alone a Super Bowl run. Yeah, that got him to about right now. And I don't think it's going to get him any further. Same as the Jets. Hey, the Jets have already fired their coach. I just can't wait to see what bum they bring in next year to piss me off for the next 3 years. Eamon Report, Lou Anarumo should be fired. I can't really agree with that. Lou's not the one picking the players. And right now, they just have such a talent deficiency. And it's so obvious when you watch them against a team that has talented players, they just don't have a solution. I think Lou's a great coach. He just doesn't have the horses. Hoffman, the Jets are clearly a 2-6 football team. Their record does dictate who they are. I agree with you. They're not good. Kelvin, the Chiefs look as vulnerable as ever. Why are these teams not able to get it done against them? I'm going to level. I don't think they're as vulnerable as they've ever been. I don't think they're as good offensively. But right now, they don't run the ball particularly well. But because with no Isaiah Pacheco, it's just really hard to run the ball well for them. Because Kareem Hunt's, he's a jag, just a guy. You give him a million carries, he's still just a guy. Carson Steele, same thing. Samaje Perine, same thing. And then you look at the receiving options, there's really not a lot there to me. And that was what I was saying about DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he improves that much. And to me, you saw it yesterday. He can half-ass get open. He just can't do anything after he does it. And that's a bit of a problem. They need Xavier Worthy to be that guy that can make moves and things like that. Soaring Eagle with a stock down for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and he said stock through the floor. Holy good Lord, we're overrated. And looking at our schedule, I honestly see at least 2 losses, Penn State and Happy Valley and Indiana. I can agree with you on Indiana. I don't know about Penn State. Penn State to me feels like fool's gold because they just don't do anything aesthetically pleasing. And so I don't know how good they actually are. I have absolutely no idea how Ohio State wound up winning that game. I saw the score. We went into a brewery that was like a tin box, and they had no internet signal. So by the time I came out, Ohio State had just won. By the way, Florida State, thank you. That last score for Miami was just enough. Push that line the right direction. Whew, Florida State's bad. And they can get out of Mike Norvell for the low price of $64 million. Good on Vanderbilt, by the way. Keeping it close with Texas. Colin, so I'm looking at the film of the Chiefs defense, and I can't make sense of why it's so elite because it looks like cover two most of the time. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. They do play elements of that. The thing about Kansas City, from a defensive standpoint to me, what is going to potentially burn them is that outside of Chris Jones, you don't have anybody that gets home consistently. And right now in sacks, you're one of the lowest in the league. I mean, they're in the bottom 10. They have 15 sacks all year. I think there's a lot of good that happens in the back half. And that's honestly, Kansas City is a defense that is the sum of all parts. I don't necessarily think you have many elite players because even Trent McDuffie hasn't played elite football this year. Where it comes in for me is that you're not really bad at anything. I would like for them to have another corner on that opposite side because that just seems to be kind of a revolving door. And that has been a place that teams have been able to get them, but they're just so good 1 to 11, and they can beat you different ways. That it's an impressive amount of talent. Just a scheduling. I'm going to take like a 5-minute break at about 1 o'clock because I've talked for an hour straight and I'm starting to get a little hoarse. Let's see. Nathaniel McQuirt said, I know how you feel about the Denver Broncos. How do you feel about my college team, BYU? I actually think they're really fucking good. And the shade that they got this week of they were going to lose to UCF, that was my college version of the Cleveland Browns. I loaded up on BYU because it was comically stupid to me. The fact that they were a dog to UCF is really, really stupid. But I think they're good. And I think there's a good chance they're going to wind up in the playoff because they're talented. Eamon Report said Nathan Shepard should be suspended. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And Red Sea said, Jeremy, please give us almost any edge rusher in that mock draft. If anybody wants me to talk draft in the second hour of this, I can totally do that. Because I got to do... we were around a hotel. Amy wasn't feeling great, so I got to do a little bit of film study, catch up on that, sitting in a hotel room with a car outside our window that was driving past about every 8 minutes that didn't have a muffler that I was about ready to absolutely kill by the end of it. Let's see. I thought I saw... Yep, there we go. Bo Nix ranked first in the major stats, including wins among rookie quarterbacks for October. Please, for my sake, get him a true number one wide receiver. I'm sick and tired of having to watch this offense be him and the Paw Patrol. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into Bo Nix. I understand being excited by this. I still would be remiss if I didn't point out, in terms of Bo's good games, and I'm using that very liberally. I mean, it's a guy in 8 games that's thrown for 1,500 yards. So they're winning games. It's way more because of the defense than it is anything else. He has literally thrown for over 246 yards one time. But then you look at the games that he's been the best. You're playing god-awful teams. He was great against the Panthers. He was great against the Saints. He was great against the Bucs. He was fucking terrible against the Seahawks. He was terrible against the Steelers. He was terrible against the Jets. He was terrible against the Raiders. And he was half-ass against the Chargers in a game they lost. I would be reticent to give up draft capital to build this team out. Now, you have a great shot to make the playoffs because the AFC sucks on the bottom side. Curtis Davis with a super chat. If it's draft talk, interior offensive line for the Bolts. Let me see how bad that has gotten. I haven't checked the grades. Yeah, that's a team that's so good at 3 offensive line spots and absolutely sucks shit in the middle. With Trey Pipkins and Bradley Bozeman. Although you got to give Bozeman credit for standing up for his guy yesterday. The Chargers are such an interesting team to me because this feels so much like smoke and mirrors and like it's not replicable, but they keep doing it. So I don't know what to do with the Chargers, but that is definitely a consideration. I don't want to give away who I have them picking, but if I remember correctly, the Chargers pick in my mock draft is a guy that I talk about for a really long time because he's one of the most interesting prospects in this class. And I don't think you'll be upset with the position he plays. Put it that way. To some people. Let's see. Chiefs picked the perfect year to be shaky on offense because, good Lord, the AFC is B-A-double-D bad. Bad, but bad. Yes, it is. You have the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts in the freaking playoffs. Heyman Report said, I'm thinking the 7th seed in the AFC will be 8 and 9. You might be right. You may very well be right. Patrick Holt said that's legit. I believe you're asking for a screenshot of the us on stage at concert for the Carolinas. I will see if they will send that to me. Like I said, I just found that out right before I knew I had been on camera. I didn't know that the moment they caught was the moment they caught. That was an emotional moment with a very specific song with a couple friends of mine that, look, we've all known Luke for a long time. So his songs, there are several of them that hit us differently because they remind us of certain things. And that just so happened to be, that happened to be what they caught. So if I will get them to send me a screenshot and I'll send it to you guys. Eamon Report said Chris Greer should be fired. You're not wrong. I mean, the problem with the Dolphins, and I'm just going to level with you about Miami. If you look at Miami right now, look at how many draft picks they've missed. Chop Robinson's doing damn near nothing. Patrick Paul's irrelevant. Hey, we hit on a running back. Woo! Cam Smith's been irrelevant. They hit on Devon Achane, another running back. Woo! Channing Tindall, Eric Azukanma, Skylar Thompson. Woo! You hit on one draft class in how many years? You hit on two guys in Minkah Fitzpatrick, Christian Wilkins that don't play here anymore. That team's just been really bad drafting. And the fact that they had given up some draft capital makes it even more obvious. And I do apologize for being a little nasally. The rain we got absolutely dumped on in Charlotte, and it brought back a little bit of the sickness I had last week. Let's see. Oh shit! Josh Uche to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a really good pickup. I don't know what they're giving up because I haven't seen comp yet. Just broke. Josh Uche to the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a solid pickup. New England's been trying to trade him for what feels like 8 years, which is crazy because he's only been on the team for 4. But that's a good situational pass rusher for Kansas City. Just another kind of what I was talking about earlier. You're not elite anywhere, but you're damn good pretty much everywhere. Kelvin Joyner asked, how will drafting Cam Ward fix all of my problems? I do have Cam as the number one quarterback he's my number one quarterback in this class, and I'm not sure it's all that close. And I know people are going to lose their shit about Shedeur Sanders. You shouldn't. And if anybody wants me to talk about that, I will. But Cam Ward's the number one quarterback in the class to me. And I do think he would fix a lot of issues with your Raiders. Let's see. Ches Johnson, I'd like to see C.J. Stroud take a contract like Mahomes so the team doesn't turn to shit after they pay him. I think we would all like to see our quarterbacks do that. It's so unrealistic because you're leaving so much money on the table. Even Mahomes, he probably would do it again, but it's not ironic that he's the one that's able to go get guys like Josh Uche. Eamon report Tampa should be calling Cincinnati for Higgins. Yeah, they're in rough cap shape. But I see the premise. That would not be the team I would be thinking about calling for T. Higgins. If I were to be, I'll be honest with you, Denver would actually make more sense with the intention of signing him long term. My reticence for Denver to go get a receiver is a rental guy. I want it to be somebody you're going to keep around here for a while. I would like him in Denver. I would like him in, I'm not going to trade him within the division. Where else would he make sense? He would make sense in Dallas. The only problem is that why would I pay more money to facilitate this shitbird team? I'd like him in Minnesota a lot. Him on the opposite side of Justin Jefferson with Jordan Addison playing out of the slot. Whoo boy. And T.J. Hawkinson coming back next week. The Bucs do make a little bit of sense. That's really about it. God, there's not going to be a ton of market for wide receivers. Already had somebody moved. New England had to bring in C.D. Sal as a fullback. That was from Timothy O'Toole. That happened a lot this week for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Oh, shit. Hold on. I zoomed the camera back in. I moved. These are our old cameras that we have one camera that zooms way too much and one camera that is absolutely terrible at picking up when to zoom in on my face. Kyle needs an OC. I would agree. Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco does really badly need an offensive coordinator. Dylan Graves, what does Indianapolis do with AR? At some point, I think you have to full on tap out because he is fucking awful. He is worse than I thought he was, and I didn't have a first round grade on him in the first place. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be. And it doesn't really matter what you do. His decision making is terrible. He's horribly inaccurate. And Joe Flacco should be starting. Eamon Report said that in the chat, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. The Colts are a playoff team with Joe Flacco. They're an afterthought with Anthony Richardson. And the fact that he did the I'm tired, come out of the game thing when he wasn't actually hurt, I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback do that. And I knew it as soon as he did it, too. You're not hurt. They're going to make this about that knee. It's not. You just look gassed. David Bingston Arent asked, do you think the Cardinals can become more consistent getting MHJ involved in games? I do. You got to remember he reported late. So he missed some time in camp that is really valuable for rookies. I do see him becoming a more consistently integral part of that offense. And if you look at his game logs, let me go to Arizona here. If you look at his game logs, he's clearly the one. He's always been the one. But if you look at his game logs, in terms of targets, he started really hot. Then they played a tough stretch with San Francisco, Green Bay, and the Chargers. Green Bay just completely shut him down, and he was hurt. That was the game he got hurt in, I'm pretty sure. Other than that, he's gotten 6 or more targets in every game other than week 1 against Buffalo. It's the production. They have to stop trying to force the ball to him and actually make him an integral part of the game plan. But I think that's going to become more consistent. For fantasy football, he's a full-on buy for me for the rest of the year. All right, we got one more super chat that I'm going to get to, and then I'm going to take like a 5-minute break, maybe get a lozenge. Colin said, let's talk draft. What's the strongest position in the draft, and what position should the Chiefs be looking at drafting? So Kansas City is going to be picking in the back end of the first round. That's kind of hard to forecast. In terms of where is this class really strong, this class is stout on the offensive line. For me, you're getting almost a mirror opposite of what we had last year. So last year you had a bunch of quarterbacks. This year you have none. Last year you really didn't have any running backs. This year you have several. Last year you had Alt as the high-end draft prospect in terms of offensive linemen, and then it really kind of got thin from there into very scheme-specific with guys like J.C. Latham and Amarius Mims and guys like that. You get into, there could be 11 or 12 offensive linemen go in the first round of this class, and it wouldn't shock me in the least. So it's definitely encouraging if you're looking for an offensive lineman. Kansas City, to me, needs a left tackle. That's one of the most glaring positions in need, and you need to get the fuck off of Taylor on the right side. He's just not any good. You know, he's an absolute walking penalty. Oh, God, compensation, a 2026 sixth-round pick for Josh Uche. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be much more than that. Teams around the league just didn't have a lot of faith in him. But I like him to go to Kansas City and be pretty successful. Okay, it is 1 o'clock here on the East Coast. I've been running my damn mouth for exactly 60 minutes. I'm going to take a quick break, play a little song here, and I will be back momentarily with more of your questions. Get your super chats in, get your comments in. I will go right back to where I was in the chat, and that would be at David Evans Olson. That will be the first one coming out of the break. I'll be back in just a minute.
Devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang bang, got my hand on the trigger. The devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang bang, got my hand, call.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, after like an hour of nonstop talking, you just got to get a sip of water, get your mind right for a second. People that can do like these epically long live streams, I've never been able to figure out how you do that. Okay, back into the chat. And if you're just joining, that's basically how we're running this. Since I'm talking to myself, I can't hear anything. I left all of that in the studio. We had to get to Charlotte, and that just all eluded my mind until about 11:50 when I sat down and went, shit. But yeah, just get your comments in. Super chats, just like a normal fantasy football week. Those jump to the top of the line, but I will go through and try to hit all of them. My plan is to do about 55 more minutes because without Tank, obviously, I don't want to do a daily draft against myself. So try to hit as much here as we can. Let's see. Why is the chat not moving? There we go. David Evans Olson, should the Steelers go trade for a wide receiver to help the core since it's so lackluster? The short answer to that is yes. I just don't really know who that's going to be. I mean, Deontay Johnson's the one that makes sense, but that didn't end so hot. So, I mean, I look at Pittsburgh I believe they're going to be 6-2 after tonight. Holy shit, you talk about a god-awful Monday Night Football game. Then they've got a long-ass break because they're on a bye next week before they play Washington. But then they go Washington, Baltimore, at the Browns, at the Bengals, Browns again, who look a lot more formidable now, at the Eagles, at the Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals. So I look at Pittsburgh as a little bit of fool's gold because I don't think you're 6-2 good playing against that schedule. So I would not go all in, but I would certainly like to be better than we are right now. You need a weapon of some kind, for sure. Jack S., do you think the Commanders' defense can hold on to make a playoff appearance or push? I do. I think the defense is better than people give it credit for. The sum of all parts is cranking up. They were pretty good yesterday. They had an injured quarterback and found a way to win. And I told you going into that game, you're going to see the difference in these two quarterbacks when they're on the field together. And if you didn't see the difference, I really can't help you much. Because Caleb Williams was the luckiest quarterback with a 15-11 or 15-12 lead in the history of the NFL. He wasn't good. They held him to nothing. And I do think the defense can be scrappy. I don't think it's good, but I think it can be scrappy. Soaring Eagle, hey Panther fans, with a super chat. Pat Surtain was right there for you, but you took J.C. Horn, who was bitching at Sean Payton yesterday for running up the score when the Panthers' defense sucks on ice. Yeah, if I live to be 200 years old, I will never really understand how Pat Surtain fell that far. I mean, I got scout friends that didn't love him, and I kept asking the question, well, why? And nobody ever gave me a reason that made any kind of sense. It was all just dumb shit. And now you see how good he actually is. He's better than Sauce Gardner, and it's really not all that close. Sauce says he pouted a lot. He really sad that they fired Robert Saleh. You suck. You all suck. Eamon said Chiefs should trade for ETN. I don't know that actually fixes anything, and he's kind of expensive. If I'm Kansas City, I'm looking to make another deal like I did with Josh Uche, where I get a player for fucking nothing. Let's see. Hit that one from Colin with the super chat. Jack S. Jeremy, between Florida State, the Jets, and West Virginia, did someone curse you this year? This is a historic level of disappointment. Yeah, it's pretty bad. My NFL team and my college team right now had playoff Super Bowl aspirations and are a combined 3-13. So, but West Virginia got to win this week against Arizona. So, country roads take me home to the place that I belong. Yeah, this is, I'm cursed by the devil. Look, I don't know what I did. I didn't make a deal with the devil like Joe Namath did. This is one of those years that really challenges how much you actually care about your teams. I can't watch Florida State. I've just completely tapped out. We are going to rage back into the fan transfer portal later this week. We said that last week and then just never, we didn't have the time. But I may be done with Florida State in general because I know things about Florida State that I don't know how you come back from. And I'm looking at that program of this could be years and years and years and years before you're competitive again because you entrusted the wrong people and a lot of you knew it. So, the Jets, I'm stuck. I hate all 31 other teams, different levels. I don't want to pull for another team. I'm here. Right now I don't want to pull for the Jets either because I've never hated my own team as much as I hate this Jets team. West Virginia is literally the only happy I get in football right now, which is hard to wrap your brain around. Colin said, Broncos, Bo Nix is looking good versus bad defenses. Wait till he gets up against an elite defense in the NFL. We've actually already seen that, and it didn't go well. And I think it will continue to not go well. Red Sea said, fully convinced Arizona can't have anything positive for more than 24 hours. Beat Miami only to turn around and then miss out on an edge rusher trade that was for a 6th round pick next year. I don't know that you missed out on that. I don't know that you were ever in it. Arizona they have a peculiar way of looking at things in their front office. And I agree with you, they need an edge rusher. They really like Victor Dimukeje. And seeing him actually play snaps this past week was somewhat encouraging. So I always liked him coming out of Duke. The only problem is he is so little. But I understand why you're upset. I don't necessarily think Josh Uche would have been a solution to your problem. But it would have hurt for sure. Timothy O'Toole, is Kayshawn Booty actually good? Not really. He had a nice catch yesterday on Sauce Gardner that was completely lost to set them up for the win. I mean, I think he's fine. He's nowhere near what he was projected to be the year before he came into the draft. Because look, people thought he was Malik Neighbors. He's not. He doesn't have that kind of work ethic. But he is certainly talented. Gambit fan asking me a draft question. Jeremy, if we could enter fantasy land where magically every team has the resources to get Travis Hunter in the draft, which teams absolutely need him? The Washington Commanders. That would be my answer. Because I think he is, unlike Charles Woodson, I do think he's going to come into the league and play both sides of the ball. There's a bit of I will say it is a false narrative that Charles Woodson was some great receiver. He wasn't. He was a nice little gimmick that was so athletic that he could get open. Travis Hunter is actually legitimately a top 2 wide receiver and corner in this class, and I think a team's going to draft him to play both. I don't think he will play as much receiver as he's playing right now, but Washington would be my answer to your question. That's the one where I would love to see him go. Now, as for how far will he actually fall, let me look up the draft order. Obviously changes every week. So according to Tankathon right now, Panthers pick 1, Tennessee picks 2, New England is 3, the Jets are 4. I cannot physically see a path that he would get out of the top 5. Even though he plays a position that historically has been underdrafted. He's also only the second best corner in this class because Will Johnson is a dude. I have a weird feeling somebody's going to draft Travis Hunter over him, and they're going to regret it for a long, long, long time. let's see, Jeremy, he was our edge one because of injury. Talking about Victor Demicheji. I know why he played. I'm just glad that they finally got to the point where he did play, because I've always thought he was an underrated player in this league and could be decent if ever given the opportunity. Colin said he likes this Josh Uche trade for his Chiefs, but I was hoping for another receiver. He said, rank your top 10 defenses for fun because fucks get. Okay. I can do that. Let's see. If I was ranking top 10 defenses in the NFL, I don't have a one. And I know it's going to be a little disappointing for the way that you asked the question. I feel like you have 5 really good defenses that can do a little bit of anything, or they're so damn good against one side of the ball. And for me, that's Tennessee, Houston, Denver, the Jets, and the Steelers. Kansas City gets out in front of you and then makes you one-dimensional. And to me, that puts Kansas City and Philadelphia pretty close to each other. The Bears are up there for me. The Packers are really, really good. They don't measure as well. They give up a lot more yards than some of these other teams I'm talking about. But I'll give you an example. The Dolphins give up exactly 300 yards a game. The Packers are almost 30 full yards behind that. The Packers are a better defense than Miami, and it's not even fucking close. Like, it's not even in the ballpark. So I would have Green Bay up there. Honestly, my last team there would probably be the Lions, because I thought they were trending to really good with Aiden Hutchinson, and I still think they're good even without him. I would love to see them add a pass rusher, but they have a real ability to stop you from running the ball. Then they do kind of the same thing Kansas City does. They get out in front of you and make you one-dimensional, and oh boy, they can be evil. Oh, 10 Titans 96. Do you think the Titans should take Shador or Cam Ward? Also, would Dion be okay with his kid coming here? In terms of his kid coming there, no, probably not. It's a quote-unquote smaller market. I've always laughed when people say that because Nashville is one of the biggest cities in the country. I don't think he would love him coming to Tennessee. I'm really locked in on the Raiders for Shador. I don't know why I think he's going to force that, because Tom and Shador have worked together. I also don't think it's going to be that much a force. I talk to guys in the league that are like, we're good. We don't even have him on our board. Now, a couple of those teams I'm specifically referring to don't need a quarterback, so it's easy to say that. But I think there are going to be teams that do need quarterbacks that go, we'll pass. I don't want to deal with that headache. He's not, to me, good enough for how much bullshit comes with him. And then I look at Cam Ward and go, you're better than him at everything. And you come with none of that. You're just a little older. So that's the reason that Cam Ward's my one. And then there's a drop off a freaking cliff to, sadly enough, Shador at 2. He is my second quarterback. Because all the quarterbacks that I had questions about, they've all given me reasons to question them. Jackass. Gambit, can we please sit Slay already? My blood pressure goes up around 500% when he's in. Yeah, you remember when I used to tell you that big play Slay moniker was always kind of funny to us in the scouting community, because it was, yeah, he gives up a lot of big plays. He doesn't tend to make a lot of them. And when he does, him and Trayvon Diggs were so similar to me for a time. And I just look on the other side. Look, Darius Slay hasn't been terrible. He just gives up a lot of big plays. But you're not going to sit him because you don't have any other choice. I mean, I don't even know who else you would play on the outside. I mean, I'm looking at your cornerbacks. James Bradbury's on IR. You got the young guys. Nobody else has really played him. That Keely Ringo's been a joke. I mean, Isaiah Rodgers, I guess. Ooh. Yeah, you're probably not going to get your wish there, Jack S. Curtis Davis said, you can say Will Johnson from that state up north, Michigan. I'm not surprised. We know he's going to be our first round pick. I'll be honest with you, I don't think he gets to you. The Chargers are going to win too many games, and I don't think you're going to have a shot at it. Now, could Mason Graham end up being your pick? Absolutely. It being a Michigan guy would surprise no one. But Will Johnson he's real, real good, and I don't think he falls out of the top 5. Gambit said Slay got burned by a rookie to the bench forever with him. Then we've got the update on Josh Uche. 10 Titans 96 said Titans Nation getting the number 1 pick. I'm not as sure of that. I have a weird feeling it's going to end up being Carolina. I just don't know who they're going to beat. Tennessee will win a couple games just solely because that defense is good. I mean, look, they were competitive with Detroit for a quarter and a half, and then shit went horribly wrong. But Cam Ward in Tennessee would be ideal to me. And I think he fits that scheme nicely, too. Eamon reports Shador comes with Deion Sanders baggage. He does. Then Jackass and Chaz Johnson are talking about T. Higgins to the Commanders. I don't hate that one. And I almost said that when I was talking about potential trade spots for him. My only problem is I don't know that I want to add another alpha dog to that team. Because right now, one of the things that's working out nicely is that they just got a lot of dudes. And they seem to really like each other. There is one, no doubt one. I still really like Noah Brown, and I think he's a legit 2. I'm really glad he was the guy that caught that Hail Mary yesterday. But I don't hate that either. I'm in a report. I hope Jim Irsay isn't telling Steichen to start Anthony Richardson. He is. I mean, because Shane Steichen's got to be looking around going, I can make the playoffs with that guy. I can't make the playoffs with that guy. And it's you're so invested that you have to try to make the most out of him. I just don't think you're ever going to do it. To me, Anthony Richardson is all of the bad shit of Cam Newton with virtually none of the good. I mean, look at it this way. This kid's played 6 games. He's completing 44% of his passes, has 3 more interceptions than touchdowns, and has not broken 212 yards in a game all year. And he got sacked 5 times yesterday. He's not good. He wasn't good when they drafted him. He's not good now. And the fact that he literally tapped out on his team on a 3rd down play that was enough for me to the pit of misery for good. 10 Titans, what a year for us to tank with no quarterbacks to pick from. Being a fan of a loser franchise just never ends. Yeah, trust me. There's a lot of us that should start a fucking support group of pulling for loser franchises. And by the way, am I the only one that finds it ironic that we had a handful of quote-unquote loser franchises that added all this talent or they were good for a year and then back to the pit of darkness? And I'm looking at the Jets, the Browns, the Bengals, the Titans, the Raiders, the Giants, the Saints. We're all historically bad teams. The Dolphins. I don't know if I said them the first time or not. I meant to if I didn't. And then weird. Give it a year. They all revert back to the pit of misery. Oh, Colin has a super chat that I am trying to get to, but my mouse is not cooperating. Over $100 in super chats today. You guys are awesome. Definitely glad that I snuck in here instead of continuing to sleep because I haven't done much of that here lately. Colin asked, is it just me or a lot of wide receivers getting hurt this year? Because defenses are definitely hitting harder again. The NFL has definitely backed off some of those hitting guys in the head, and guys have just gotten better at it. Kyle Hamilton is an absolute dog at hitting guys exactly where you're supposed to and it not be a penalty. So, I mean, I would agree with you. I think there have been a lot of guys that have gotten dinged up over the course of the year, but that's the attrition at wide receiver is a thing every year, and it seems to be worse this year. Colin asked for Creed, so I can't play Creed if I'm not in the ESPN studio. We can play it because we have a license. I do not have the license here, so it would demonetize the whole stream if I played it now. The song that I have been playing is called "Devil" by Baron Gates. It's a song that I found. I got a license for nothing, and so I'm able to play it in situations like this, and it's pretty good. It's free, so it's not Luke Combs or anything like that, but like guys that allow us to use their stuff. Oh, let's see. Evan, you may have missed the beginning of the T trade talks, but if you want a wide receiver one who only plays 8 to 10 games a season, he's your dude. I wouldn't be shocked if there are a lot of teams looking around going, I think I'm good on paying him number one wide receiver money. Titans saying Simmons and Landry should be off this team. They're still good players. I'm not necessarily a fan of just gutting the team, but I'm also not averse to finding out what a guy's worth. And Jeffrey Simmons would return a haul. Harold Landry, not as much, but Jeffrey Simmons would bring you a haul. And several teams would be interested. Eamon, the Jets will never do this, but I think it's time to bench Rodgers for Tyrod Taylor and rip off the Band-Aid. They'll never do it. And at this point, what's the point? Now, you're 2-6. You're a bad NFL football team. Just let Aaron continue to do what the fuck he wants to do. He's going to retire at the end of the year. Devontae Adams will be gone. And hopefully you can bring in a coach that sees the talent on this team. I don't think it's going to be as attractive of a job as people think, because you've got some serious malcontents with the Jets. And if I heard one more time about this impassioned speech from Devontae Adams, and I was in no way shocked that they came out and played like shit. It just didn't surprise me. There's not a lot of heart in this team. Chio asked about upcoming quarterbacks in college. Basically, everybody's sitting around waiting on Arch Manning right now. I mean, Arch is the dude. In terms of what do you have years down the line? All right, I'll go ahead and tell you, this year's class sucks dog shit through a straw. I mean, it blows dead bears. It is terrible. It's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Drew Aller, and I don't think any of those later guys outside of Dart are first-round picks. I like Jackson Dart a lot. The league doesn't seem to. So he will be the guy I'm higher on than everybody else, but I look around and just go, good Lord, this year's crop of quarterbacks sucks. Now, in 26, that's a little different, because now you're getting a bunch of guys that we don't know exactly what they are. Let me explain. We've seen a little bit of Arch Manning. All right, he is eligible for next year's draft. Nico Iamaleava is also eligible. Dante Moore at Oregon is also eligible. He will be their quarterback following Dylan Gabriel next year. Jackson Arnold, hey, by the way, Oklahoma, remember that thing I told you about one of your quarterbacks sucks Hindick and one of them doesn't. Maybe you should play the one that's not terrible. Malachi Nelson, Jaden Rashada, Avery Johnson. You got a lot of guys that are interesting at the very least. The only one that I know definitively is going to be a quote-unquote franchise prospect is Arch Manning. Quarterback is getting worse and worse and worse, and nobody seems to want to talk about it at all. And I don't really know why that is. We have not had, outside of Jaden Daniels and obviously C.J. Stroud, who I did not view that way, we haven't really had the high-end quarterback prospect. Everybody wanted to make Caleb Williams one. He wasn't. He wasn't, and it was super obvious. And now I think people are starting to see it. Super chat from Red Sea. If you could, which edge rusher would you pick Arizona to go after before the November 5th trade deadline? Zadarius Smith was my first thought because he fits the scheme. In terms of guys that are available, I don't want to teach Chase Young to play standing up. I don't really want to do that with Max Crosby. Azeez Ojulari was the second name that came to my mind because he just really doesn't have a role with Thibodeau and Brian Burns. And his brother plays for, BJ plays for the Cardinals as well. So that would probably be my choice. You don't have a lot that are out there, just to know. Josh Uche, the Patriots were desperate to deal, and he got them a 6 next year. Colin, Sauce is double bad right now, and I don't understand him getting beat to death by 2s and getting his lunchbox taken by 1s. I can try to explain it. I mean, obviously, I've watched Jet film. It's just about enough to piss me off, so I can't do it at a high clip. In terms of coverage, he's not been as good as he has been. He hasn't been bad. The problem with Sauce is that he's gotten a little bit of a reputation for being grabby. And now it's almost like he's trying not to do it. And the fact that he's so damn thin is becoming a problem because guys are getting physical with him. And when guys have gotten physical with him, he has gotten beat. Not much. I mean, my objection to what you said about he's been bad would be you were missing the 2 and the 3 for a handful of weeks. I know DJ Reed missed 2 weeks. Michael Carter missed 3 or 4 weeks. And so Sauce was really the only real starter that you had playing consistent snaps, and they're the second best passing defense in the league. So to say he's bad, I think is an overgeneralization. He just hasn't been the shutdown guy that we expected. But name me the player for the Jets that has been as good as we expected. They're a fucking dumpster fire. And dumpster fires, that's what they do. They take good players and they ruin them. Eamon Report said Mark Davis loves money, and Shador and Dion are very lucrative. Yeah, I do see a great possibility he winds up in Vegas. I do see a great possibility he ends up in Vegas because I'm looking at the top end of this. I don't think they would want him with the Jets. I also don't know that the Jets would want him. I know a lot of guys in that front office, and he is really got an attitude that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But for me, it's the Jets or the Raiders. Nobody else really makes sense because they don't want him in a small market. And I don't think he's going to fall to 10. Quarterbacks are always overvalued, and that just feels like he's going to fall in with either the Raiders or the Jets. Gambit, Arch Manning is Texas' best quarterback, to me at least. Why do they insist on Ewers, who hasn't been good since he got back? I really don't know. Because I agree with you. I think it's been pretty obvious. It's been in light work that you've seen good of Arch Manning. And it could be that, you know what, Sarkisian's seeing this day to day. I got a vet in Ewers. I'm going to go down with the vet ship as opposed to losing a game that knocks us out with a young guy that really hasn't played. That would be the best explanation I have because it does look to me like Quinn Ewers is still hurt, or at the very least he's limited. Hoffman asked, could the Raiders or Giants trade for Higgins? My question would be why. You got two teams that are going to be picking in the top 10. And let me look at my big board of receivers. There are no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that are going to go in the top 45 that I think are all really dynamic receivers. My question would be why? Why am I going to go pay $30 million to a guy when I could go get possibly an equivalent or maybe even better talent in the top 10 of the draft? My thought would be the Raiders are the team that doubles up and they go Shador and then maybe Evan Stewart or Alec Ayumanor or maybe Trey Harris, and they double up and take that guy in the second round to be kind of the 1B to Jacoby Myers, and maybe add a guy in free agency that's not a true one. That's my thought. But Ches said, hey, send Anthony Richardson to Denver, and he can be Sean's new Taysom Hill. I actually think that's all he's good for. I really do. I think that's all he's good for. Colin said, we need more of this, Jeremy. Please bring it back. Are you talking about me doing streams by myself? Because I can do this all the time. I didn't think anybody would enjoy it, and I'm glad that a lot of you have shown up and super chats. So, hey, I mean, if this is you guys in the chat, you tell me what you want more of, and we can do our damnedest. Our whole little apple cart got upset during the flood, obviously, but now we're trying to reschedule a lot of things and figure out exactly what we're going to be doing for the long haul. I've also at this point it is a lot of me carrying the water because Tank is being pulled in other directions doing. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's doing way more important shit. I mean, he's been one of the faces of the flood coverage and things like that. So, and I'm very happy for him. I'm really glad. I'm going to say this on a stream just solely so it's on record that I can say it to all the people that listen to the show. I am really glad that Asheville and Western North Carolina and the state of North Carolina and our bosses and all of that, I am really, really glad that they are seeing what I think all of us have known, which is Tank Spencer is one of the most talented fucking people I've ever met in my life. And I hate that it took this event, but I am so glad that he's getting put in places that he has deserved for a long, long time. I also know there's zero chance that he saw what I just said. So, you know, I'm not great at compliments, but I have told him that to his face numerous times. So let's see. It appears unfiltered Jeremy's sections answering out direct questions is always a welcome show. That's from Jackass. Stephen Towle, more polls, even just random shit. And Gambit said, agreed, need more unfiltered Jeremy. Okay. I mean, this setup is in my house. I don't particularly love the way it looks because it's not as HD and I don't have all the toys. But, I mean, we can do this. We can do this a lot. And there's a merit to, I could do this in mornings. I could do this every morning. I don't do shit in the morning except prep for our show, and I can prep the night before. So, I mean, if this is something you would like to see from 8:30 to 9:30 every day, we can make that happen pretty fucking easily. Because usually, I'm sitting in the office doing other shit that has nothing to do with our show. It also doesn't pay me very well, so it's a lot more fun for me to sit down and do this. Okay, let's see. Eamon Report said defensive players have gotten much better with hitting with the shoulder pads. Yes, they have. Those kill shot, helmet-to-helmet shots have gone way down, and the shoulder into the chest plate have gone way, way up. Matthew Hoffman said we also have more concussions in football than in hockey, and they still have fighting and brawls in hockey, which have been some of the best fights already this year. So, I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you one of the reasons you have more concussions in football is because we have way more stringent testing in football. You got a lot of concussions in hockey of guys that are like, nope, I'm just not saying it. It's all right, I can go down this rabbit hole. You were talking about unfiltered Jeremy? Here's unfiltered Jeremy. The NFL is a gajillion-dollar product that got sued. To my knowledge, there's never been a hockey player that sued hockey for things that happen to them later in life. That's the difference. Hockey players are tough by nature, and they don't want to be that guy. The NFL players, they feel like they were led astray. They were not told how dangerous this was, which I really struggle to believe. But you've never been sued. So you can continue to be the game that people have been. We brought lawyers into it in the NFL, and you made us change it. We have a choice. And trust me, there are a lot of football players that I know personally that are like, I miss the days of just throwing on a chin strap and knocking the shit out of each other. But not everybody feels that way. Eamon Report said the Saints would be the best fit for Ewers. He could sit behind Carr for a year. I think all of these quarterbacks need to sit outside of Cam Ward. I don't think there is a ready-made solution, which is why I think this year, in terms of quarterback movement, is gonna be fucking wild. You're gonna see guys move for actual compensation that don't make any sense. And Eamon Report doubled down. He said, I think 2025 will be the year of quarterback reclamation projects. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Colin said, didn't know the 2 and 3 corners were out for those games. That's good to know. I'm talking about for the Jets. The Jets have been ravaged by injury. That's not why they're losing. They're losing because they can't stop the run and because Aaron Rodgers is trying to harken back to some level of magic that he ain't got anymore. You know, at this point, he feels like the genie that's come out of the lamp and he's out of magic. So he's got no wishes. Now you're just a douchebag in a lamp. That's where he's at. Okay. Jack asks, can we do a week 10, how we would fix, improve each team for the end of the year and 4 years down the road? We can absolutely do that. I need to make a note of that. Excuse me for just 1 second. Because one of the most common things we do on this show is somebody asks something like that that's a really good idea, and it slips my mind, and I never think about it again. Sorry, I know this is not great, but if I don't do it now, I will forget about it. Gambit doubled down on what I said about hockey. I don't think there's more concussions in the NFL than hockey. I just think the NHL is still in the old school. How many fingers am I holding up and say they're good? Exactly. That's I would go exactly what Gambit said there. Oh, 10 Titans. Will Ohio State get smoked by any competent team on both lines of scrimmage? They just suck. I don't think they'll get smoked by any competent team. I started circling this week against Penn State. If you're going on the road, I don't necessarily think you're as dynamic at quarterback as everybody wants to claim you are. Will Howard's been good. I don't think he's been great. And so I will be interested to see what that game plan looks like against Penn State, and then the one at the shoe against Indiana. I think Indiana is a better coached team. Kirk Cignetti is a damn good coach. Really awkward interview, but he's a damn good coach. We got about 15 minutes in this live stream, so get those questions in, and we'll dip out about 2, and we'll have a first round mock draft for you in this time slot tomorrow that is recorded. Colin said, you by yourself or you and Tank, it doesn't matter to me. This is fun and I enjoy this unfiltered Jeremy. Hey, we can, if the only time that I have to do that would be in the morning. So we could do an 8:30 to 9 and 8:30 to 9:30. I could do that every day if it's something that people would watch. That's always the big thing, is that it takes time, and so we got to really commit to doing it at the same time every day. And I won't know that until I'm 3 months in. So if that's one of those people go, I'm getting ready for work then, but I could watch it later, then that's worth talking about. Or do it live, or however whatever the case may be. Pennywise said this is the most injured year I've ever seen in the NFL. There's been a lot of injuries. There have been a lot of injuries, and look, injuries are a little fluky. We all know that, but this has been a hurt year for sure. Chio talking about reclamation quarterback projects. Who are the best prospects for that? Oh, in terms of guys that are going to get a second chance. In terms of young guys, I don't have a lot. Because as I said, I don't believe much in this quarterback class. So you're going to get one that gets Cam Ward, one that gets Shedeur Sanders, and then everybody else is kind of just shooting a shot at a guy that maybe they could develop 2 or 3 years down the line. In terms of teams that are going to need quarterbacks, the Jets, the Browns, the Steelers, I fully believe the Colts still need one. The Titans, the Raiders, the Giants, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, at some point the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. That's 11 teams. Geno Smith and Matthew Stafford might get another shot somewhere for a year. They're both just really old guys. I think Sam Darnold is the future of the Minnesota Vikings, and I think they're going to reward him as such, which means J.J. McCarthy will be available to one of those teams. I don't think you keep seeing the Andy Dalton thing spin. Daniel Jones will get a second shot. I'm not so sure Kenny Pickett won't get a second shot. Kirk Cousins probably gets another year in Atlanta before they turn it over to Michael Penix. I always kind of thought that was a 2-year plan. Whichever quarterback in Seattle doesn't end up being the guy is going to get another shot. I could see a great chance that Jimmy Garoppolo gets another shot. Excuse me. From there, it gets a little harder to find because I don't think Mac Jones does. Justin Fields is certainly interesting. I just don't know who the team would be. I feel like if Jameis Winston keeps playing the way he's playing right now, he's going to get a shot somewhere. And then it just kind of gets nebulous of there aren't a whole lot of choices. And it's not, there's not a lot of talented guys out there. I've always said the funniest part about the NFL, what scouts sit back and laugh at, is that there are 32 teams that need quarterbacks. There are not 32 quarterbacks in this league. It's just the way it is. Gambit, since we're unfiltered, non-football question, why does boxing suck in America? Japan and the Europeans have individual fighters to look forward to. We have Tank Davis not fighting anybody. And the guys he can fight are boring Floyd clones. I can tell you a couple of reasons. I grew up loving boxing. I loved boxing as much as I love football and basketball. The promoters killed the sport. Splintering the belts killed the sport. You had a billion belts. None of them really meant shit. And then we started losing all the best fighters to MMA. You know, guys that were stand-up boxers started learning mixed martial arts because you got better notoriety in the UFC. Now, it's so damn hard to actually promote one of these that, yeah, you can make a shitload of money in a fight. You make nothing outside of that. Because the biggest boxers in this country have to go out of this country to make sponsorship dollars, and that's where you make generational wealth. That's where Floyd Mayweather made a shitload of his money. He made a lot in fights. What people don't understand, you pay a lot of that money out, too. You make $30 million in a fight, you may pay $15 million of that out to your team, to your gym, to your trainers, to your promotions guys. So it's not like they just handed you a check for $30 million and you went, okay, cool, let's put that in my pocket. You need to make promotions money, and in this country, we don't. That's the biggest reason. And promoters are fucking terrible in large part. Jack S., how do you fix a fantasy team with Tyreek Hill, Dak Prescott, Pacheco, and Mike Evans? I'm getting murdered in fantasy right now. It's kind of hard to do. There are not a ton of guys out there that I think are dynamic and can change a lot. Wednesday, we will probably have a segment about players that we think will have a bigger second half, and that would steer into what you're asking about, Jack. I haven't studied that for this week enough to really go down that rabbit hole with you right now, but give me till Wednesday and I'll see what I can work out. Colin said, Penny, I agree. This is the most injured year of the NFL that I can remember over all the years he's been watching the NFL. There's been a lot of injuries. I'm in reports for projecting Sammy D to the Rams. I'll go ahead and tell you, Sam Darnold ain't getting out of Minnesota. If they have to franchise him, they will. He's been that good. And I actually got into a conversation with another group of radio guys that had me on their show. And, you know, they know that I'm a Sam Darnold truther. And they were asking about when does he cede to J.J. McCarthy, and I said he doesn't. He doesn't cede to J.J. McCarthy because you're going to hope and pray that this quarterback that not a lot of people really bought into in the draft is going to become what? Exactly what Sam Darnold is right now. But he's cheaper. Who gives a shit? I can go get high-level draft capital because there aren't many quarterbacks. I mean, I'll be honest with you, J.J. McCarthy would have been the third quarterback in this class. And he would have gone in the top 5, most likely, behind Shador and Cam Ward. Zachary Moss, who I'm going to assume is not the backup running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, but if he is, that's fucking sweet, said the Rams have Stetson Bennett. They don't need to draft a quarterback. I will die on that hill. Okay. I mean, you're totally entitled to your opinion. I've seen Stetson Bennett the preseason. He can't score on third stringers. So if that's your plan moving forward, whoo, he's going to have to develop a lot, and he was already an older guy in the first place. I never saw NFL quarterback out of Stetson Bennett. But look, I've been wrong before. You know, there were a lot of, I didn't think C.J. Stroud would be as good as he is. Thought Bryce Young would be good. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong on Stetson Bennett. I don't think I am, but I could be. Matthew Hoffman, where do you think McCarthy would be best suited? Where would he be best suited? That is a damn doozy of a question you've got there. Where would he fit best outside of Minnesota? Honestly, my first thought was the LA Rams, and I'm not saying that just because Zachary just said that about Stetson Bennett. I like the idea of him being coached by a quarterback whisperer like Sean McVay that is so good at scheming offense. I'm also trying to think of somebody that's made use of a mobile quarterback over the years. And there's just not a ton of them. I always believed that J.J. McCarthy was destined to fall to the Denver Broncos, and Minnesota jumped in front of them, and that was enough for them to settle for Bo Nix. I will say the best landing spots for McCarthy would be the Rams, potentially the Saints, depending on who takes that job, and maybe the Steelers. The Steelers feel like they need a young guy to not be spinning this veteran bullshit for the next handful of years. Also feels like that's invariably what they're about to do. But McCarthy with Arthur Smith is intriguing to me. Gambit fan, just talking about Kenny Pickett, somebody will see those game-winning drives and think there's something there, 100%. Davis Mills is a sleeper project pick from Iman Report. I can't believe that somebody would see what he's put on tape unless they're going back to the draft prospect and just sticking their fingers in their ears of what he's put on NFL film. But look, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, and there's going to be a lot of beggars in the NFL. Which team would you want to see Ben Johnson take over as the head coach? That's from Gambit fan. The New York Jets. I would like to be friends with the head coach of my team. But if I'm answering that in a non-selfish way, Chicago's a good one. And I see Iman has already said that. Chicago's a good one because they have a quarterback that I think he can do some really good stuff with. I have always been clung on to Jacksonville because I feel like that's a place to get him. You're going to have to give him full autonomy. Let him bring in his own personnel guy from Detroit that he's comfortable with and put in a whole program So Jacksonville, the Jets, Chicago. That would be my top 3. Jets, selfishly. The other 2 because he's actually a fit there. Notorious B.I.G. said Ben Johnson in New Orleans, please. I look, there are going to be a lot of teams that want him. And only one. I think everybody. I do believe everybody that has an opening is Ben Johnson's their one. He's just that good. Colin said Sam's going to get a Brinks truck of money from the Vikings. No way in hell he's leaving Minnesota. I agree. And Ches sent JJ to Carolina. And Eamon said he's projecting Slowick to Jacksonville. Slowick will be in high demand as well. Gage Camplin asked, hey, brother, what's your take on the Birds now? We talked about Philadelphia earlier. I think you're a bully. You beat up on shitty teams. I'm not sure you can fight with anybody that's in your weight class. But yesterday was impressive to a point. And if you look at the schedule, all you have to do is keep beating up on shit, and you'll win 11 games and make the playoffs. Do I think you're any kind of threat when you get there? No. Because I don't buy your quarterback and I don't buy your coach. But at least seeing him get Devontae Smith involved yesterday was encouraging. I don't think you can win in this league playing the way the Eagles do. Not at a high level. And not with the NFC so much better now than it was. I'll be honest with you. You were asking me about Ben Johnson. Philadelphia is the job I'd love to see him get because I think he would run Jalen Hurts out of town in about 15 seconds. Obviously, that's a pipe dream fantasy thing, but still. Matthew Hoffman, okay, but wait, do you think the Jets, Woody really would be willing to make that move with Ben Johnson? I can tell you that I have a lot of friends in that front office, and I would be very vocal that I think Ben Johnson can be the guy that fixes that team. They've got to stop hiring retreads and defensive losers. They've done it basically for the last 30 years. Woody Johnson needs to get the fuck out of the way and let the football people, Joe Douglas, this ain't his fault. The only fuck up he made, you forced on him. Joe Douglas should still be the GM of that team. I don't think he will be, but he should be. And he goes and gets Ben Johnson and just says, look, I'll give you input on personnel control. I would love to see it. Do I think it's going to happen? Not really. More because I don't think Ben's interested in New York than New York's not interested in Ben. And Brandon Waters said, I think Kingsbury will flip this Commanders season into another head coaching gig. I agree with you a lot. And I'll tell you why. There were a lot of scouts that were not as sold on Jaden Daniels. I was. I loved him. He was my number one quarterback in the class. I couldn't figure out why he wasn't everyone's quarterback in the class. But there are a lot of people that thought he was a much more raw prospect that Cliff Kingsbury has done incredible things with, and he's going to get a lot of credit for it. And he should. That offense is damn good, and it's damn dynamic. I don't know that I would feel great about Cliff Kingsbury as my head coach. And that more feels like what the Jets do. The Jets find a way to get, because Cliff Kingsbury played there, and he's got friends in the front office as well. He would get an interview. He crushes it. Woody falls in love with him, and next thing you know, that's the new head coach of the New York Jets. That would be my thought of more likely how it actually happens. And then Colin, with our last comment of the day, said, Kingsbury makes me very nervous as a head coach. I'm not going to lie to you. He makes me pretty damn nervous, too. So, this has been fun. I'm glad I did this. After the long weekend in Charlotte, it was there was a lot that went into that. There was a lot that we thank everybody that donated, everybody that watched, everybody that had any role in that concert for Carolinas. I want to give a big thank you to David Tepper, the Tepper family, and Luke Combs, who we just so happen to know and have known for a long time, and he's one of the most gracious human beings you will ever meet in your life. And to see him put on a show like that in 28 days is awe-inspiring. It is magical. It was an unbelievable night. And I just want to say thank you as a resident and a guy from here. Thank you to all of them for what you did, and thank you for caring about us. Mock draft tomorrow in the noon window, same window that the show would usually be. It will be recorded. I will not be here for that, and then we will be back also in this time slot. And Tank won't be an AI baby with a cowboy hat on. It will be actual Tank. But until then, I'm Jeremy Green. This is the Sportsocracy. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow for Mock Draft Tuesday.
How's the weather up there on the high horse that you fed with your daddy's money? How's it feel to be fake as a motherfucker? Hey, let me tell you something. They don't give a damn when the money's gone, when the people in the stands don't sing along. Cause you know you ain't the man that's behind the song, thinking it'll work, but it won't. Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up. Anything they ask you, do it. Well, I know the ringer, I've been drugged to hell and back, been through it. Your time's tick-tock and I said, and I'm unapologetic. Cancel, yeah, you can try. You can't cancel what's been tonight. I ain't been headed shit, no silver spoon inheritance. Tired of trying to be what other people want me to be. And now you get what you see. Now you get what you say. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up. Anything they ask you, do it. Well, I know to hell and back, been through it. Your time's tick-tock and I said, and I'm unapologetic. If you need an explanation, well, I get knocked